Today we are going to go through a pure fighter build. I haven't done one of these in a while. The fighter is one of my favorite classes purely because it gets a bunch of extra feats, and I just love feats. Along with that, it's a fantastic combatant with any kind of weapon basically, and allows you to put out some seriously impressive damage, and with the 2024 buffs, also has a surprisingly large amount of utility, a lot of healing, and some really good movement as well. There's nothing especially fancy going on here, so let's get on to the build itself, shall we? Let's go for the species option first. I've gone for the Tal, the half-orc from Exploring Eberron. This gives us an extra feat choice, which is useful. We've gone for Zhentarim Ruffian here because it allows us to roll our damage twice when we make an opportunity attack, and also gives us the chance to get advantage on our initiative rolls if we have a heroic inspiration. That's not really why I'm taking it. I'm taking it for down the line when we're going to be taking the other Zhentarim feat. Along with that, it gives us relentless endurance so that we can avoid dying once. Dark vision, which is always good, and a standard amount of speed. We're going for, these are the final stats, but you will be starting off the build with 17, 13, 16, 10, 10, and 8. So you're pretty sturdy around the board, which is always nice. For our background, we are going for Farmer because I want tough, and I want to take a +1 to con and a +2 to strength. We are going for a strength build. I did consider a dex build, and I think it would work fine as a dex build, but I just love me a big old greatsword. I do. I can't help myself, I'm sorry. Leaving this at 20 for my own sanity. I like going through the builds sometimes one at a time, and I will be talking about each level individually, but I just loathe having to do all the stuff I've already done before. Take whichever traits you like, it is entirely up to you. The fighting style we will be starting off with will be great weapon fighting. This gives us a more consistent damage with our greatsword, which is the weapon we will be using throughout this build. It means that it's a really negligible difference. The average on a d6 goes up from a 3.5 to a 4. It's not much. It's an extra point of damage at this point with one hit, but it's something, not a bad thing. Rather upsettingly, this does not work just with heavy weapons. This is specifically when you're holding a weapon with two hands, which means that we will be losing it at level 4, but that is a problem we will deal with later. Because of the little damage boost that gives us, this gives us an average damage of 11, assuming we hit. And if we don't, then we do 3 damage because of the modifier. 11 is a very respectable level 1 amount of damage, so no issues there. At level, obviously, take whichever masteries you want, but do make sure you have the greatsword for greys. Level 2 is a big one for fighters because you not only get tactical mind, which allows you to boost your ability to do skill checks, which is lovely, basically. It also gives you the wonderful action surge. This lets you, once per long rest, take an extra action, basically, which we can use to attack, which means that on our good round, we can do 2 attacks, which means our damage is up to 22 on that round. But it's still 11 otherwise, which again, is still quite respectable. For the subclass options here, I checked a bunch out, and the one that I've landed on is the Living Crucible, which is from the Grim Hollow Player's Guide, the most recent one. It's a lot of fun. It's basically a Witcher-themed subclass, which is why we're playing as Geralt the Mitcher. Could be Gerald too. It's up to you. Pronunciation. Words are all fake. Nothing means anything. Don't worry about it. This gives us a bunch of compounds. We don't have access to all of these to begin with. The most important one that we're going for here is Liquid Rage, which lets us deal an extra 1d4 with each of our attacks, and we can consume this as a bonus action. So that's generally what you're going to be doing with your bonus action most of the time, is consuming one of these. You can consume a number of compounds equal to your 1 plus your con mod, which means you can also take a couple of others, like the Steelskin Ointment, which lets you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is a fighter. It's pretty cool. Because the d4 that we get adds onto our weapon, I think a great weapon master, great weapon fighter, great weapon fighting, I've forgotten what it's called. Great weapon fighting should apply to that, which is a 0.8 difference to the damage, which is more than a 0.5 difference, but it's something. So we are doing 14 damage per attack now, which means we're up to 28 damage. At level 4, we get our ASI, our first feat. It's tempting to do something I'm doing later now. I'm not going to tell you what. You'll simply see. I think it's at level 8 we do it. But instead, I'm going to go with Great Weapon Master. This lets us boost our strength to 18, which means we have a +4 modifier on our damage and on our hits now, which is always nice. And it also lets us add extra damage equal to our proficiency bonus, which is an extra 2 damage at this point per hit, which means each hit is doing an average of 17 damage, and the average is fairly consistent at this point as well because of Great Weapon Master. And it also means that we're doing 34 damage on our action surged round, which is solid but not, crazy. As ever with fighters though, things get a lot more chaotic and a lot more impressive when you hit level 5 because you get extra attack. This is much, much better with Action Surge because you get 2 extra attacks, basically, which means that our damage jumps up to 72. It also helps that our proficiency bonus has gone up to +3 from +2, which means that our Great Weapon Master is doing more damage as a result. It's a good tactical shift, which lets us move when we second wind, which is lovely. Level 6, because we're a fighter, we get to take another feat. I love building fighters. It's my favourite. We're going to take the Charger feat, because I really like the Charger feat. It lets you deal an extra 1d8 of damage if you run straight at a creature. An extra d8 is never anything to be upset about, and it takes our damage up to 77 in total. Level 7, we get Living Cauldron, which allows us to safely consume more of our concoctions, which is fantastic. And at level 18, it goes up even higher. So we can really chug these potions now with no ill effects, which is definitely important because we will be chugging them. The damage does not change at level 7, though. At level 8, we are going to go back and we're going to change our fighting style, and we're going to take the dueling fighting style, which gives us a +2 bonus to damage rolls with our weapon if we are using a weapon in one hand and no other weapons. To facilitate that, we're going to take the brutal grip feat, which is another one of my pet feats, I think. This lets us take our strength to 20, so we have a +5 modifier now, which is absolutely incredible. It also lets us use our greatsword with one hand. It also does other stuff, which I should at some point build around, but I'm not going to right now. This allows us to have a shield and a greatsword, which is an image I just adore, and it also means that we're getting a fair bump to our damage because of that extra 2. This takes our damage up from 77 to 82.5, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is notable. The damage would be higher if we were still applying great weapon fighting, but we're not. Dueling comes out ever so slightly on top here, and we'll get stronger and stronger as we go, basically, because more of the damage comes from a modifier now instead of our dice rolls. If you're rolling more dice, if you've got something like a flame tongue, great weapon fighting is likely to come out on top in terms of which one you should take, which means you shouldn't take brutal grip, but it's up to you. Level 9, our proficiency bonus goes up to 4, so we get another 4 points of damage, which is 86.5 at this point. We also get Tactical Master, so that we can mess around with our weapon properties, which is fantastic if you're trying to control the field. And we get Indomitable, which is kind of like a legendary resistance, which is never a bad thing. Level 10, we get more weapon masteries, but it's not that big of a deal. More importantly, when we use a bonus action to drink a compound, you can drink 2 at the same time. So we can give ourselves our Liquid Rage, which gives us an extra d4, and also give ourselves resistance to the physical damage types at the same time. You're not doing much with your bonus action with this build, which does irk me, but it's not the end of the world. Level 11 is another big one for fighters. It's a big one for most classes, but fighters especially, because you get 2 extra attacks. This means you attack 3 times, which is a lot with a greatsword, and it also means that our damage jumps up massively to 127.5. Level 12 is another big one because we get to take another feat. As you can see here, I've taken Zentrum Tactics, and I've boosted our dex to 14, just because. This lets us do a few things, but the most important thing it lets us do is more consistently attack with our opportunity attack. If a creature within 5 feet of you hits you with a melee attack, you can use your opportunity attack to hit them directly back. You don't have to worry about creatures moving away from you, because you're likely going to be running in like some kind of mad dog. This gives you a pretty consistent extra attack, which is an extra 20.5 damage, which means we're up to 148 damage at this point. Level 13 sees our proficiency bonus go up to 5, which is our penultimate proficiency bonus boost. This adds an extra 7 points of damage onto our attacks in total. So we get 155 damage at this point. We also get studied attacks, which means that if we miss, we can get advantage next time, basically, which is, you know, nice. Level 14, things get fun because you just don't really need more feats here. You probably could take more feats here, right? You could boost up other stats if you wanted to, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I am going to take another fighting style. I'm going to take the Opportunist fighting style, which gives us a +2 to our attack and damage rolls when we attack with a reaction attack, which means our damage goes up to 157. Level 15, we get Toxic Transmutation from the subclass, which lets us end the poison condition on ourselves, and also lets us gain temporary hit points when we do so, which is not bad at all. It does nothing for our damage, but a little bit of survivability never did anyone any harm. Level 16, I am going to be taking Shieldmaster. This was me just trying to figure out what I should be doing, really. I like Shieldmaster a lot. I haven't really considered it in any of my builds, because it's not a feat that used to be good. It used to use your bonus action. It no longer uses your bonus action. Instead, if you attack a creature within 5 feet of you, as part of the attack action, you can immediately bash the target with your shield if it's equipped, which it is, because we've got big shield, big sword, right? Shield's here. Not here. It might be here. Depends what shield you're using. Sword is here. You got that. I'm right-handed. That's not a reveal. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the DC is your strength mod plus 8 plus your PB, which at this point should be a fairly comfortable 18. On a failed save, you can either push the target or you can cause them to go prone, which means that they will be on the floor, which means that you will have advantage on your other attacks. It also lets you use a reaction to give yourself pseudo evasion on dex saves, which is very nifty. It doesn't do anything for our damage, but it does do a fair amount for our consistency. We also get another weapon mastery as well. Level 17 sees us not only getting another action surge, which means we can be a little bit more consistent with this really impressive damage output, but also means that each of our attacks gets another point of damage, which means that our damage goes up to 164 average at this point, which is not bad for having literally no magic items whatsoever. If I could use magic items in these builds, they'd go so bonkers, but here we are. Level 18, we get Living Catalyst, which lets us be a little bit more flexible with all of our tinctures, our potions. We'll look at those in a little bit as well, like the options there, because some of them are really cool. Level 19, you get an epic feat. I'm not taking an epic feat, I'm taking focused critical so that we have a higher chance to crit. We're doing so many attacks and we're generally going to be rolling with advantage, because if we miss, we can get advantage in the next attack, and then as long as we hit, we can attempt to shield bash someone as well, which is good stuff. So yeah, we're taking that so we can crit on a 19 or a 20. Doesn't do anything for our damage. And then the final level for fighters is the simplest but the most wonderful of Capstones, because it lets us attack an extra 3 times when we take the attack action. This means we're doing 4 attacks per attack, very normal sentence, which boosts our damage up to 208 damage on our action surge rounds, which can be 2 of them, remember? And even without that, it's still 140.5, which is a lot of damage. Along with that, we have an 85% chance to crit once during the turn, which would deal an extra 26 or so damage, and a 19% chance to crit per attack if we're attacking with advantage. This is a super straightforward build. It's incredibly simple, but good gravy do I like it. Let's take a look at some of the compounds here. You get a lot of them by the end of it. You can get There's one that improves your speed, there's one that lets you gain hit points every single turn, there's one which gives you advantage on specific saves, there's one that gives you advantage on specific checks as well. The arcane oil one is nice because you can always just see stuff, magic stuff, which is just great. And I like the liquid courage one as well because it lets you gain twice your fighter level plus your con modifier in temp health, which lasts for level 20 is going to be 50, which is a lot of temporary health on top of all the other healing you can do as a fighter, on top of the fact that you're probably wearing heavy armor and wielding a shield and wielding a greatsword. And again, if any of those are magic in the slightest, you're doing more damage because you're hitting so very many times. That is it for the fighter build. This one does pretty handily beat out the pugilist I did a couple of weeks ago. I took a week off of doing damage-based builds so you could see the bard I did last time. That's that, though. I love fighters, I really do. They're so much fun to theory craft and build because you just get so many options. You could theoretically take a bunch of other fighting styles instead of messing around. There are epic boons I could have taken, but I just don't really like the epic boon options. Am I weird? I mean, I am, but not for that, I don't think. But that's it. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Support your local third-party theory crafter. I will see you whenever I next see you, or whenever you next see me, whenever that might be. It could be any time. Likely, statistically though, the next time you click on one of my videos. I hope you're doing well and you continue to do well. The weather's going to start getting a little bit warmy, and hay fever season won't have arrived then, so I hope you get a chance to get outdoors if you enjoy the outdoors. That's it. Get some naps, do some push-ups, all that good stuff. Goodbye.